Busto Sun began as a blend of instinct, craftsmanship, and timing. I'm originally from Venice, Italy, where tradition and handmade artistry are part of everyday life. When I moved to California, I was drawn to Topanga because it reminded me a more free-spirited version of home. Creative, wild, unpolished in the best way. I started making hats because I missed making something with my hand. That's where the journey began. Now we're gonna get this fitted.
Do I have a perfect head?
Perfect head, a lot of brain.
What do you think will look good on my skin tone?
I think a little lighter. I will go definitely this one because we want to complete your hat collection and you have something similar on this tone, so I think that one will pop. Awesome, let's do it.
Let's go.
Yeah, this is good, but makes that a little darker.
Yeah, I like this one. Okay.
Perfect.
What else?
Let's do a nice hummingbird, like tone on tone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be really nice.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Perfect. Awesome. Here we go. We're gonna block the felt around our hat size, 7 1/4. We're gonna use some water just to have the steam going through the felt. I'm gonna tie the blocking cord around so the felt won't move and it's gonna be nice and tight. We're going to use the puller down to pull this cord down on the edge of the block. I love working with the beaver felt. It feels so buttery and soft and magical at the touch. It's a very sensorial, when you touch a hat in this material, the feeling is like pure pleasure. Just imagine like the old cowboys in the old Wild West wearing those hats in any condition and for such a long time, as really as a tool. So one of the most important parts in the hat making is to create the alien, which is the break between the crown and the brim, very sharp. We use the foot tooliker. So we're gonna create like a very sharp angle there. It's very important for the wall construction of the hat. And then this one will sit here for a couple of days, so it's gonna dry properly, and we'll remember the shape of the block. The block is made in wood. I had to create this pattern to match my foot over there. So when I wanna clean the hat, we're gonna brush the felt in the right direction. Well, every block is made based on the size, so we have the full collection of sizes to go from, the newborn hats to the giant hat. There is like a proportional height. Wider the block, higher the hat to create the similar proportions. This block here that we designed with the client, and we envisioned like a top hat that was chopped by a blade. It was a kind of like a crazy project. We're gonna print the sweatband, and with this we're gonna imprint the first part. This was like a vintage machine, probably like 100 years old, made in Hollywood. So sometimes you have like one piece of one letter and you need to be creative to make it happen anyway. I started making hats because my passion for hats and my passion especially for vintage hats, using the old traditional skills that my mom taught me when I started stitching at 5 years old. I learned how to stretch them and disassemble them and pretty much put them together again on my size. After I restored a few hundreds of those, I felt the need to make new ones. And I had the luck and the privilege to meet one of the best artisans in the world, in Italy and in Japan. They give me some of their secrets. I think the best way to learn a craft is to do it with your hands and try to solve the problem you go through. So this thread is very durable and waxed, so it's ideal to go through the leather, and it will make this seam very resistant. Trims and ribbons comes from flea markets, family-run small businesses, and just a little treasure we find somewhere. We love to hunt for little treasures. I'd rather wait a longer time to have the right material than doing something like quickly with something I don't feel connected to. This is a late 1800 conformator. It was made in France to get exactly the shape of your head. So this is all ebony wood, like the pianos, and when you're wearing your head, these wood sticks move the nails on top, and it's gonna reproduce your head shape on this little piece of paper. We're gonna cut around all that little holes and put it inside her sister machine. So when we mold the hat, it's gonna be molded exactly around your head shape. So the rounding jack is a tool that allowed us to cut a certain dimension brim and go all around, making sure we're very close to the crown. So this is like a raw cut, very straight, so we want to make this one smooth and soft. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of alcohol, so it's gonna release the fibers. And then with the very fine sandpaper, it's gonna sand all over. So it's gonna be more smooth at the touch. The burning has like three different functions. One is to remove all the fuzziness left after the sanding. The second function is to make the hat a little bit more sturdy because the fibers kind of like get tied together when you burn it. And the third one, longer you keep the fire on and more distressed the hat becomes. A custom hat isn't about fashion, it's about identity. People who wear my hats want something meaningful. Our customer can be anyone between a bride, a rancher, a musician, or a quiet thinker. The unique thing about this machine is that it makes only one job, stitch the sweatband inside the hat, and that's it. To lower just a tiny bit. Perfect. See, now the top is incavate, so we are going to use a block to create what we call the teardrop. Yeah, when we design a hat, we want to make sure that the crown of the hat and the pinch kind of like resemble the client face shape. And so that will create the balance on your full image. But the crown, of course, it will impact a lot on the face and how you look with the hat. So as you can see, the grosgrain is pretty straight, but the shape of the hat goes a little bit as a cone. So we need to make sure that the grosgrain will apply very even on the hat and will create a nice and elegant overlay. See how we shape the trim? So when we're gonna go around the hat, it's gonna be nice and attached to the hat in the bottom and on the top. Now we're gonna fit her hat exactly around the head shape. Now when it's gonna dry, the hat will fit exactly her head shape. One day this girl came in and said, I'm due for a custom hat. And she said, I saw you put a coin on one of your hats. Would you do it for me? I said, yeah, of course. And so she opened her wallet and like in a little envelope, she had $1.50, $1 in paper and 50-cent coin. And okay, we figure out to put the 50 cent on the brim. I drilled it, stitched it, and I put the dollar, tucked under the grosgrain. And while we were designing, we spent like 30-40 minutes together and talking and understanding, the meaning of her hat. I said, this is a very, transformational hat for me. It's like a very particular moment. I'm switching my life. And, we were almost at the end, and I had the courage to ask her, so what about the $1.50? And so she looked at me and said, that was my last money I had. And I had to decide if sell my guitar or have a meal. And she decided to keep the guitar and not have a meal. And so the next day she got a great tour deal. And so she was able to make a living making music. And that was very special. a hat can be a real piece of celebration for like a pillar of your life. What I learned from the traditional hat making is that every detail counts. Like 1.5 inches, right behind the pinch there. From the single stitch and how you do it, and even stuff that nobody see. My mom was a seamstress and she used to make me all my clothing since I was a newborn. And she always would tell me, everybody can do a good design outside, but it's from the inside that you see if they care. And so when I grew up, I was wearing all this suit and tie, but the most important part for me was the liner inside my suits. And that's why now with my hat, I get kind of crazy with the liners and the color of the sweatbands and all the option inside that nobody will ever see but yourself. But but in the morning when I wear my hat and I see, the bird of paradise, I feel in vacation. And so that feeling stays with me all day long. I mean, being an artisan means put your heart into what you do. Like a producer or like a factory, they make the same exact thing and their quality is to preserve the same standards. But I think when you put your heart on a piece, and especially in front of a person that you wanna like embody that person, is more than that. So you have to put your soul into the hat. And like, for example, I like to listen the music they like to listen in that moment while making the hat, to have that energy bringing over the hat. So mastery is when you can forget the technique and just feel your way through. It's when your hands move without thinking and the piece tell you what it wants to be. It takes so much practice because, based on the different weight, based on the structure of the hat, on the natural dye that is inside the color, it changes completely. So you have to, do it so many times and just be manual and understand how the fabric will react. It's never wrong, you can always change it, you can always reshape it. And even if you want to change completely the style, this one can be like a flat brim hat very easily. Just to, steam and higher on the brim, and we'll come back. I think it's kind of like a privilege to, be able to carry a tradition, especially an old tradition from my hometown. And but at the same time is also a responsibility to carry it into the future. And so maybe, stuff that we used to do it and the way we used to do it, they don't work anymore for the contemporary world. And so I think mixing with a lot of respect, the old tradition and, the new vision for the future is like a pillar. It never gets old. Every hat is different. Every story is new. Making this quality hats means that someone someday will find one of these hats and will ask, who wore it? And that's the power, that's the legacy. When I'm working on a hat, what's going through my mind is just the person that is gonna wear it.
You did the hummingbird. I love it.
And I try to capture that energy and in some way reverse it into the hat. A good hat isn't just an accessory, it's a mirror and a shield at the same time. People stand differently, look more present. It's beautiful to witness.